Gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the 5th edition of the World Coffee Conference. It's indeed our pride and privilege to be hosting this prestigious event in Asia for the very first time. And India is the chosen destination. Further, we're very excited that besides hosting several prestigious premier events in the city in the fields of IT, BT, electronics, and of course the recently concluded G20, now we are also host to this coffee conference. Indeed, another feather in the cap to this dynamic city. The inaugural session yesterday and the plenary session this morning has set the tone for the next 3 days of the conference. And as you are already aware, the event is hosted by the International Coffee Organization in partnership with Coffee Board of India, Government of Karnataka, and Government of India. The greatest focus the world over today is, as also concluded in the recently concluded G20 summit, is sustainability, regenerative, and cyclical economy, in lieu of which embracing sustainability through circular economy and regenerative agriculture is the theme of this event. We are hosting conferences, panel discussions, CEO conclave, Global Leaders Forum, Coffee Growers Conclave, Exhibition Center, and a host of amazing cultural events in the evening. I do urge all of you to stay back and watch these events. So a warm welcome to delegates from over 80 countries, and of course growers and other participants from all over India. We do hope that you have a very memorable experience here. Once again, a very warm welcome. And now moving on to this noon's session. Coffee quality and specialty coffees is the theme of this session. The session will explore the science and artistry behind producing the finest coffee beans and perfecting the roasting process in 2 insightful talks. The speakers will delve into the unique qualities of Indian specialty and fine coffees, as well as the GI coffees of India, and advanced chemical research techniques that unveil the secrets of specialty coffees. There will also be a panel discussion to deepen understanding of the coffee industry's pursuit of quality and excellence. I request all of you to join your hands together now as I welcome the chair for the upcoming session, Mr. Yanis Apostolopoulos, CEO, Specialty Coffee Association. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I'd like to call upon Dr. Christophe Montagnon, CEO, RG2 Vision. A very warm welcome to you too, sir. May I request all of you to give a big round of applause, please. These gentlemen have come from far off places to be particularly part of this event and to give their insights to all of us. Ms. Ivana Whaler, trainer consultant, Probat Training Center. A very warm welcome, ma'am. Mr. Sunalini Menon, President, Coffee Lab Limited. Ms. Sunalini Menon, warm welcome to you, ma'am. Dr. Mandappa, Divisional Head, Coffee Quality, Coffee Board of India. Welcome, sir. And Professor Emmanuel Oliveira, Federal Institute of Espirito Santo. A very warm welcome to you, too.
Yes, no, they can join now.
Now, the members of the panel discussion, Mr. D.M. Purnesh, President, Specialty Coffee Association of India. Welcome, sir. Mr. Anuj Agarwal, Head of Coffee India, Louis Dreyfus Company. Welcome, sir. Mr. Gilbert Gatali, Executive Director, African Fine Coffee Association. Once again, on behalf of everyone present here, a very warm welcome to you. And now over to the chair.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here. It's a fully packed room. I hope that you find there are some seats here in the front. You can come and sit down. It's really an honor and a privilege to be moderating such a panel of great people within the coffee industry. Thank you for saying my name correctly. I don't challenge you to say my last name. It's a very difficult Greek name. And because I'm Greek, you're going to excuse me and some of our panelists because we have English as our second language. So please accept my apologies for that. So Um, I want to set a context about this conversation about specialty coffee and quality. Specialty coffee is something that we have recognized over the years about really high quality coffees, but it's not just that. It's much more. It's something that speaks about how do we recognize coffees that they can bring more value across the value chain. And I want to speak a bit about what we as SCA are trying to do. And our purpose is to foster global coffee communities, to support activities to make coffee a more sustainable, equitable, and thriving endeavor for the entire value chain. In just 3 words, we're trying to make coffee better, but coffee better as a value chain. So it's not to make just a better cup of coffee. So it's not just about the quality. So I want to stay on what is specialty coffee. And the question, like, is specialty quality? Is like just only the coffees that score really high, the coffees that are specialty coffee? And we tried to kind of find a definition for specialty coffee, because for many, many years, there was no definition of what specialty coffee is. There was a definition of what specialty graded coffee is, and that was a score based on a cupping form. But we said, okay, we need to actually go on and define what specialty coffee is. So we started with research. This is a research paper that was published years ago and was trying to understand the quality and the prices based on the Cup of Excellence auctions that has happened in the past. And then we started understanding that when we talk about coffee, we talk about multiple things. We talk about the cupping score, the physical appearance, the roast color, like who is the farmer, what is the process. And all of those are called attributes. And as we were thinking about that, we did go into a basic marketing theory that was published years ago by Professor Michael Porter, and talks about how we identify attributes within something that we value. And we realized that within the coffee, we do have like 2 main categories of attributes. Intrinsic attributes, which is what the bean carries by itself, which is the cupping score, the physical appearance, the size, the grade, everything that it carries by a bean, and everything which is not in the bean, but it's outside the bean that we do value in coffee. And that is the origin, the certifications, the name of the producer, the processing. So we said, if we take, for example, the car industry. If I am telling you, so I drive a Volkswagen, would you like to buy it? You cannot put a value on it. The more information I start giving you, so it's a 1999, it's a Volkswagen Golf, and that's the engine, and that's the color, and has all the service. The more that I tell you, the more you can identify the value and you can put more value. So what we said is the fewer we know about the coffee, the fewer attributes, it goes to the commodity. It goes to just moving beans. The more we know about the coffee, the more we value the coffee we have in front of us. We know the name of the farmer, we know the process, we know how it tastes, what is the descriptive analysis of the coffee. So eventually, we said, that is important. We know the more is specialty, the less is commodities. And we can measure attributes. They are objective characteristics or words that are very objective and can be measured. And the value of the attributes can be measured. That's like the definition of an attribute. So we went and we defined specialty coffee as a coffee or a coffee experience, and that is recognized because of its distinctive attributes, it gets more value in the marketplace. So the more we know about something, the more we value it and becomes specialty coffee. That goes hand in hand, of course, with quality, because the more we know about something, usually we know more about its quality. And quality can be objective and subjective. So the coffee that I like because I come from Greece, might be completely different from the coffee that you like because you are from India. We like different flavors, and that is acceptable. That doesn't mean that one coffee is not a good coffee and the other is a good coffee. And that perception is something we had for years between Arabicas and Robustas. Some people, they love Robustas, and it's a great coffee. It is a specialty coffee. Some people, they love washed Arabicas. So, the more attributes, the more value the coffee gets. And it's different around the world. So what we value might be different. That is completely like random. So what I might like fruity or lemon coffee. It's different for individuals. So we ended up, if we can measure attributes, we can understand value. And eventually, we can talk about a new paradigm on how we discover value in coffee. I just wanted to give you this context, as all the panelists today and the speakers are going to talk more about quality and specialty coffee. But for us, the Specialty Coffee Association, this is what we define as specialty coffee. Thank you so much. Christoph is going to be the first one who takes the stage. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Yannis. Good afternoon, everybody. You can start. While they are putting the presentation, I would like, of course, to thank the organization, the Coffee Board of India, and the International Coffee Organization for inviting me to this very special event. Always a pleasure to be in India, of course. And happy also to see so many people. Okay, yeah, you can find, okay. Excuse me. So hello again. So you might be surprised that the title is not exactly the one that is on the program, but I think the idea is exactly the same, is to talk about the role of genetics and varieties in building up the cup quality. So that's just who I am. I'm going fast on that one. Just know that my company, RD2 Vision, is advising the private sector on coffee genetics and agronomy for R&D and innovation. So I will start with what is quality, and I'm very happy that you gave the definition, because I think we are pretty much aligned, which is great for me on that one. So quality is what is rewarded by the market with higher prices. And in this presentation, I will focus on aromatic cup quality, which is specific with all the attributes of specialty coffee. But, you know, for breeders, let me tell you right now that it is very difficult to be sure in advance that a variety that you are breeding for cup quality will be rewarded by the market, because you need consistent quality of years, of geography. You need to reach a kind of reputation. And it's a huge responsibility for a breeder out of your research station to tell farmers that, hey, this variety not only has a good cup, but it will fetch very high price. Well, it's difficult to take that responsibility. I'll come back to that. What about breeding now? So it's important just to go back to that definition of breeding, which is about genetic progress. So let me read that. The plant breeding can broadly be defined as the search for cultivars whose genetic value for the traits in consideration here, cup quality, is higher than the one of previous cultivars in a given area. So this definition is important because we always think about genetic progress and breeding with the creation of new cultivars, which is a large part of it, but also introducing into a region existing cultivars from other regions that have good attributes is also genetic progress. And screening existing genetic resources from germplasm collection is also a way of breeding. It is not only about creating, it is also about picking what is available and improve the situation in a given coffee area. And introducing existing cultivars in a new coffee area, that's the most ancient way of genetic progress. I mean, that's the way coffee has expanded around the world. Just introducing a new variety that had proven to be good in another place. That's the easiest way. Of course, it is often uncontrolled. You have phytosanitary risks and sometimes genetic mix. I would like to mention here, as part of my career, I was at some point the Chief Scientific Officer of World Coffee Research. So I'm happy to mention this unique worldwide controlled example of introducing and testing varieties around the world, which is the International Multi-Location Variety Trial led by World Coffee Research, which I was happy to advise some 10 years ago. So you have the number of varieties. You've got one plot of this international trial in India with CCRI. So here it's a very nice way to introduce new varieties and see how they cup, how they perform in a new country. However, I will also take the advantage of this presentation to tell that in the coffee world, there is a lot of barriers for more formal and fair exchange of cultivars. Of course, people investing in breeding, they deserve a reward for their investment. That's the breeder's right. UPOV is the international body managing the breeder's rights. Also, there is sometimes, and I would say often, complicated bureaucracy in countries so that it is difficult to introduce new cultivar that could bring genetic progress. Okay? And there are room for improvement, I think, and I think that maybe the International Coffee Organization could be useful in having some task force to ease the fair exchange of coffee material around the world. So introducing is one, but also screening what you have. Screening genetic resources is so important. The genetic resources, the collection of, like the museum of some varieties can be big or small. It can be with the private sector, with the public sector. Let me give you the example of geisha. Everybody knows geisha, of course. It is just the result of a screening in a farm in Panama. With the story, it is written, I will not mention, but it's the very traceable history of screening some genetic resources that came to geisha. Also, some new names of cultivars in the specialty coffee industry, which is a Chiroso, Big Bourbon, Bourbon-Ahi, all from South America here. They all emerge out of the blue. In some farms, and when I was lucky enough and privileged to genotype those, they are all Ethiopian land races, all just like geisha. So how did they land in those farms in Colombia, in Ecuador, in other, nobody knows. But here they are. And, you know, I was mentioning that quality is what is rewarded by the market. And in fact, I would like to mention Cup of Excellence from the, organized by the Alliance for Coffee Excellence. I had a partnership with ACE, Alliance for Coffee Excellence, some years ago. And I was digging into all the historical data of Cup of Excellence in different countries for the last 20 years. And you can see here very clearly that Oh, no, you cannot see, in fact. Because, so here, below, you've got the years. And you can see that, for example, two examples, in Costa Rica and Nicaragua, in 2007, it was only Typica and Bourbon-like varieties that were in the top 20 of the Cup of Excellence. And then, if you, at the end of the 20s, you had Ethiopian landraces, geisha, of course. You had East African, like SL28, for example. And you had some kind of yellow varieties, and the same for Nicaragua. So this, I will come back to that, but Cup of Excellence was kind of screening the varieties that were rewarded for quality. Okay? But there is a fun fact that I want to share with you today, is that most of those varieties, most of the varieties that are winning the Cup of Excellence around the world, they were not selected by breeders in research stations. Most of them, they were, in fact, discovered, or they were selected by farmers and by some instrument, just like the Cup of Excellence. So that's why I'm saying, in fact, the farmers, they maintain the genetic diversity of cultivars, and then the market, in this case, the Cup of Excellence, is the final breeder, in fact. So nobody ever said, oh, I'm going to breed and select a geisha. No breeder ever thought of it. What happened is that geisha popped up, was rewarded for quality, and that's how it was selected. Not by breeders, in fact. So when you think about, okay, I just said that the farmers, they are maintaining the genetic diversity. So it is very important then for breeders and for countries to know about the importance of genetic diversity and to know about your genetic landscape of Coffea arabica. So this one I will go very quick because it is the summary of very recent genetic studies on the genetic diversity and genetic grouping in Coffea arabica. So I will go quickly, but what I want to show you is just that in the native habitat of Arabica in Ethiopia and South Sudan, you can see you've got different colors. Then it went through domestication in Yemen. You've got other colors. Each color represents a genetic group. And then in the world, that means everywhere, including here in India, what is cultivated is mainly the Typica bourbon, a little bit of the core Ethiopia, which are the geishas and others, and a little bit of that group, which is in fact SL34 and others. So my point here is that there are some colors that are missing. So there is still a lot of room for improvement from some hidden treasures, rare birds somewhere to find for breeding for high cup quality varieties. And here, it is the first time I am showing this Arabica coffee cultivar wheel. I just put it online this weekend, in fact. So here, it is a tool that can be used to see for yourself where you stand, what is your available what is your available genetic diversity. Here you've got a lot of varieties, most of the varieties around the world, and the different colors are the different genetic groups. So for example, this yellow one here, orange yellow, is the core Ethiopia. So that's where you will find the geishas and the chiroso and others. So your varieties, where are they? What are you missing? Where are the gaps? So as a country, as companies, it is very important to know where you stand and what you need to introduce or to test to have more opportunities to select for high quality coffees. So this slide is exactly what I just said. Whatever is your strategy, at the end of the day, you need to know what is your genetic landscape, what are your needs, and what is your priority for introduction of new genetic resources. This slide, I go very quickly because we have all the chance to have Aaron Davis in this conference. He will give a conference tomorrow, but it is just to mention that beyond Arabica and Canephora, we can look at different coffee species. And Aaron and his group, they have done a lot of publications those past years about candidates, new species. So I'm just mentioning it, but I think he will give a presentation tomorrow. So I encourage you to follow his presentation on those new species candidate for coffee cultivation. So a few words on Coffea canephora. So that's Robusta or Conilon in Brazil. So in fact, I've got a wheel also here. It is just not available yet. I need to finish it. But anyway, what is really important with Canephora is that it is a virgin territory. So there will be very quick wins, very quick wins. There is a huge genetic diversity in Canephora. So there is not much work so far. We knew few things. I published myself something, I think it was in 94 or 98, I can't remember, on the difference between varieties for quality on Canephora. But here, there will be very quick wins, easily. As soon as we go for selecting for better Robusta, that will be easy, I tell you. That's for sure. And I would like to give you here an example, because we are in India, and I'm not sure everybody is aware that India is one of the hot spots of coffee breeding in that world. CCRI has made a huge job for so many years. And in fact, there is, oops, sorry. Here, you have selected in India a variety called C-into-R, which in fact is a Congusta, which means that it is a cross between two different species. I wanted to show that in France, my country, I'm French, there is a brand, Carte Noire, belonging to Lavazza. And this package that you can find in France is mentioning Congusta. This is the C-into-R that is sourced here in India, because it is bringing some attributes, interesting attributes to Robusta. So you see, it's there. It is there. So you can value it. It's important. Just a few words about when you are a breeder and you still want to breed for quality, what are your selection criteria? What do you judge? So you can go for cup quality. That's the obvious one. You cup and you see it's good or it's bad. And it's not as simple as that, of course, but it is long and it is costly for cupping, okay? And also, again, it's not really predictable on the long term. What will be the market? So it's difficult. What I have seen myself is that more and more research teams, here it is CIRAD from France, you see, with Aaron and Kew Garden, they had a very nice paper on the beverage quality of some wild coffee species. And here what I put, oh, okay, I'm sorry, it's not difficult. Here, I put this part here, and you've got in red all the coffee industry. A lot of coffee industry that was part of this scientific paper just to give their opinion on cup from the market. And it is quite a new trend that breeders would send their samples to the industry so that they get a feedback and they can select what is in line with the market, in fact. We are also, as breeders, we are searching for some indirect criteria that would ease the process and make it less costly. But unfortunately, when we look at the precursors of aroma, even if we have found some interesting results, it's not enough. It's not enough, the correlation, to say, okay, I will only look at trigodeline, for example, or fat matter, just to say this will be a good coffee. It's not enough. So it has been, let's say, a little bit disappointing on that sense. But then, I think one of the most promising today is about volatile compounds. And there are at least two very interesting studies that are pointing towards limonene as a compound that is present in most, if not all, the varieties that are rewarded by the market for specialty coffee. So it could be, like, for the future, a good target. So those are my two last slides. It's kind of wrapping up. I think, this is my opinion, that traditional breeding can still bring significant genetic progress on cup quality. And I highlighted, and I highlight again, the role of the farmers themselves in maintaining the genetic diversity and offering to the market a diversity of varieties. Maybe some of you will be disappointed that I didn't talk too much about genomic breeding, marker-assisted selection, gene editing, etc., etc. Really, I believe it's far away. I mean, we need a lot of work in coffee on basics of finding some genes, some molecules that are related to the quality. I mean, we are just at the beginning. I think there are room for improvement in easier and cheaper way. Nevertheless, there are some projects that are starting where you try to connect the genomics, the metabolomics, and the cup quality. And that will be more and more in the future. Today, I think, if I want to invest and have a return on genetic progress, I still think that traditional breeding can yield a lot of good fruits. Tapping into so far unexplored coffee genetic resources will yield the short-term results. That's what we have seen in the past, and it will continue. The more you search, the more you will find some rare birds, coffee varieties around the world. This is happening. You know, all those geishas, Tiroso, Pink Bourbon, and others, they have been found through the screening of the market of what was offered by some farms. And that's the most efficient way so far. And I think you all heard about the F1 hybrids. I think it is really the way forward. That will be a game changer. The thing is, most of the F1 hybrids, they have one parent, which is an Ethiopian variety. And really focusing on choosing the best parents, Ethiopian, to bring quality into those F1 hybrids is really, to me, the low-hanging fruits for cup quality improvement, for mainstreaming, in fact, the aromatic quality. I don't know if you would agree that with mainstreaming specialty coffee, it's kind of antinomic, but I think that's in the next 10, 20 years, that is what will happen, I think. So with that, I thank you so much for your attention, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christophe. That was very interesting. So we're going to try to get on this journey through all the phases of the processing of coffee. So we're going to continue with Ivana Weiler from Probat. She's head of training and a consultant for the training center of Probat. And she's going to talk about art of roasting in the context of quality and specialty coffee. Are you good?
So let's see if you can see me. Otherwise, I take a step maybe to the side. Yeah, so welcome to my presentation on art of roasting. I'm also thankful to be able to speak here in front of such an impressive audience and international audience. And I directly start. So let's see. Yeah, we just right now heard something about green coffee from Christoph, and now it will be the topic of roasting. So when we look at the topic of creating a good cup of coffee, it's not alone about selection of the right green coffee. It's not only about roasting it in a certain way. You also need to know about the right preparation style, how you have to grind it, how you have to extract it. And all in all, it's a trilogy of these three fields of the process chain of coffee. And I will start with explanation of what happens in the roasting process. So on this slide, you can see typical product temperature curves over time for a single batch during roasting. In general, when you charge the coffee into a roaster, you have a starting point, a charging temperature, and what you see is a drop of temperature on the product thermocouple, thermocouple reading. And this is due to the fact that the cold coffee is dropping into the hot roaster. The thermocouple first needs to homogenize in temperature, and from some point you see a rise in temperature again. So this point is the turning point, and from this point onwards you can take the product temperature curve as a reference point for the bean development inside the roaster. Yeah. So during the course of this roast, you see we travel through different stages in the development of the bean. So we have a first stage of just heating up and drying the bean matter. In this stage, we don't have any color change, not a big color change, only the bean is getting a little bit more pale, but we dry it from an initial moisture from around 11 to 12% to a moisture of about 5% when we reach the yellow point. And the yellow point is the point from which onwards the chemical reactions start inside the coffee bean. And the most important one is, of course, the Maillard reaction, so the reaction between amino acids and sugars in the bean, and they form the typical coffee aromas. Yeah, of course, also a caramelization is happening between the sugars, which also then in the end contributes a little bit to the aromatic development of the coffee. And in these two stages at the beginning, you can say nothing would happen if you wouldn't add energy. So these phases are endothermic, and that's exactly the explanation of this term. So you need to add energy, otherwise nothing happens. Yeah, and then at a certain point, you hear the first cracking noise. So the beans are really popping up. This is due to the fact that you, of course, have a water vaporization, you have a pressure build-up in the bean cells, and this is then released by this first cracking sound. The first cracking point is also a good reference point because it's the point from which onwards you really develop the typical roast aromas. Yeah? So that's also the reason why this brown phase you see on this graph is also called the aroma development phase. It's also dominated by the Maillard reaction, so it still continues. Of course, also the water vaporization still continues until the end of the roast. But the further we get, the further we develop in color, at some point we hear a second cracking noise. And this second cracking noise has a different reason than the first cracking noise. It is a symbol for the pyrolysis reaction starting inside the bean. So it means it's a degradation of the organic matter inside the bean. Yeah, so in the end, you decide, as a roast master, you decide for your roast end temperature, your roast end color, because you want to reach a certain aroma in your coffee. and this is then defined by the roast end temperature. It can be before or after the second crack. That's then up to your product development. Yeah, and important also for this phase is as soon as the pyrolysis starts, the chemical reactions get slowly more and more exothermic. So they release more energy than they use for the reaction. And this is really important thing to know, because this is the behavior of the bean you have to react on to be able to control the roast. So roast profiling is the term. We will again see this traditional roast profile of a coffee batch. And the question is, how do I create such a profile? Usually we start with a high energy supply at the beginning. So high energy supply means high supplier temperature, high air volumes. And with this we speed up the drying process, so the green phase of the roasting process, and we create on the same side volume inside the beans. Volume is important. Volume of beans means also always a higher extraction, and by this then also maybe a higher body perception in the cup. And then usually, depending on the roast profile you want to adjust, you usually set a first reduction step of energy supply before the first crack to be able to control the roast, to also counteract this exothermic effect. And again, depending on the taste profile, also the roast profile you want to adjust, you may have some second, third, and so on reduction steps to shape your roast profile. Important is to know, the more flat the roasting curve gets to the end, the more you also reduce acidity in a cup. But also you flatten your aromatics. So there's a maximum you can flatten the curve before it's getting baked. You get really baked aromas then. So which parameters do have an influence in the roasting process or on the roasting profile? Most important one is the green bean. So we've heard about the different varieties, different cultivars of green beans, and all of them behave differently in the roaster. So it's depending on their density, their material consistency, their screen size, defects, so their quality also, how they will behave in the roaster when the same energy is applied. Also, the porosity and the surface condition is also a crucial fact. So, for example, when we think about decaffeinated coffees, the bean matter is already opened up, so it reacts differently in the roaster, and that you have to be a bit more sensitive with the heat supply, otherwise you will not be able to control the roast. And in the end, of course, the moisture plays a crucial role, because it's defining the drying phase of the roast profile. So if you start with 11 or 12% moisture, like on a fresh crop, or with an old crop where you are maybe already at 9 to 10% moisture, will have a different result inside the roaster, and will have a different result also in the end in the cup. And of course also the technology itself, so the roaster design has a big influence. You can see here the 3 different roaster designs, functional principles currently available on the market for the roasting of coffee. So that's on the top the drum roaster, the second one is a bowl roaster or centrifugal roaster, and the third one is a tangential or fluidized bed roaster. You can also find some continuous roasters on the coffee market, especially for high volume coffees where you don't have a big change in the roast profiles and in the products. But for a wide product portfolio, it's important to have a batch roaster which can adapt then to the different beans you roast. Then also the cooling process has an impact on the cup quality in the end. Do you roast with quenching water or without quenching water at the end of the process? Or is the coffee still warm when it's taken out of the cooler, so it's still warm in the package or in the bin where you're transporting it into? Then you lose again aroma. And in the end, bean to air ratio, roast air in general, so its temperature, its consistency, its volume is a crucial factor as well, because that's what differs also in these three systems. We have the drum roaster, which is the traditional method, which is around 70% convection, 30% conduction, and when we look to the other systems, we increase in convection to almost 100%. So they differ in the heat transfer to the bean. So back to the roast profile, we look now at different colors of coffee, so different roasting degrees. And there are some basic statements you can say on aroma development when you change the roast color or roasting degree. So just comparing the light roast to a dark roast, in general, you can say light roast usually is more acidic, more sour in its taste, might have some bigger aroma complexity, but will have, of course, less roasted flavors, less bitterness, and maybe also some lower body perception, because you don't extract so much in a light roasted coffee because the volume is not developed as much as in a dark roasted coffee. And on the other hand, of course, a dark roasted coffee, on the contrary, is reduced in acidity. So the darker you roast, you reduce acidity in a cup, and increased in bitterness and roasted flavors. And very characteristic is for a dark roasted coffee that you have a high extraction yield. Back to the roast profile. So we have here now 3 different profiles, which all were applied to one coffee. This was a Colombia Supremo, and it was roasted to the same roasting time and the same roasting color, but just with different roast profiles. So we applied different energies during the course. And we have a standard profile 1, which is a linear roast profile development. Profile 2, so we have a high energy at the beginning, reduce quite a lot to flatten the curve. And profile 3, where we start with a low energy amount at the beginning and increase to the end. And the other course, you can see the falling line is the color development during the roasting of this profiles. So you see that also the color develops differently if you apply a different roast profile. And when we look now on this influence on the cup profile, we've cupped these 3 coffees with our Probat cupping panel, and yeah, we've analyzed, of course, many different attributes, but only for 4 attributes we could find significant differences, and that's the aroma intensity, that's acidity level for the 3 different profiles, balance, and pleasant aftertaste. I don't want to go too deep into the details now to these cupping and the results, but I think it's a nice display on how the roasting profile really influences also the cup profile, and how important it is that you reproduce a roast profile if you want to have the same cup result with the same coffee. And also these 3 profiles result in different extractions in the cup. So in this case, we extracted the coffee in a French press preparation. We used 55 grams per liter and measured the total dissolved solids and percentage extraction. And also in this case, you can see there are clearly differences, which will, of course, then also influence the sensory attributes in the cup as well. In general, you've seen the 55 gram per liter displayed on the slide before. This is, as a rule of thumb, this is the gold cup standard we speak about. So an extraction or brew to water ratio where you have the optimal extraction. But you also need to know when you extract a coffee, the finer you grind it, of course you extract more. The higher you use, the higher the doses of the ground coffee, you also extract more. Mr. Guinard recently published this new brewing control chart, which is also relating the sensory properties to consumer liking, to brew strengths and extraction yield and brew ratio. And by knowing about these two parameters, you can then adjust your cup profile by using the right dosage in combination with the right grinding degree to meet a certain cup result, to move your coffee into a certain direction, depending on the liking. Also, different brewing techniques might have a different demand on the roasting profile. So just as an example, when we take an espresso extraction, usually we would use, maybe you kept in mind the profile 2, which is high energy and strong reduction to the end to have a little bit longer aroma development phase, to calm down aromas, to reduce acidity in the cup, because you have a really small shot of coffee in your cup, and otherwise you would be overwhelmed by the acidity in the cup. And on the other hand, for a filter coffee brew, for example, a profile 1 or 3 would be a better result, because you enhance the aroma in the cup, and this is better for such a kind of preparation. And to end my presentation, I have a short summary. So the roasting result is always depending on so many different parameters, but most important ones are the green beans used, the roast profile, and that's the crucial ones. But as soon as you have variations in your roast color and time, maybe also in your roast profile and your grinding degree, you will also end in a different cup result. And maybe also different preparation styles can have different demands on the roasting profile. So in the end, this is the art of roasting. Thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Silvana. That was very interesting. As we go forward, we're going to dive a bit more into the Indian specialty coffees and how these get to be perceived by the market, and what is the qualities around the specialty India and fine coffees. It's my pleasure and honor to invite Ms. Nalini Menton from the Indian Coffee Lab to talk about that.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I'd like to thank the ICO, the Government of India, the Coffee Board of India, for having invited me to make this presentation on the quality profiles of Indian specialty and fine coffees. Today, 3 billion cups of coffee are being consumed the world over, and specialty coffee is expected to grow at an annual rate of 12.3% per year in the next decade. Quality, sustainability, and convenience are taking the center stage, and consumers are wanting to know and understand the quality and sustainability of the coffees that they're drinking, and at the same time, they want these coffees to be served in a very convenient form such as a cold brew or an RTD or a pod or a capsule, or even a crafted instant coffee. Such is the scenario of today, which is a far cry from the 1960s, when we saw the coffee bean extricating itself from the coffee fruit. I'm coming to the year 1980. That was the year when we started our focused quality journey in Indian coffee at the Coffee Board of India, where I was working. We decided to implement an incentive payment scheme to the farmer on the quality of the coffee that was delivered by him to the coffee board. At that point of time, all coffees grown in India had to be delivered to the coffee board for purposes of marketing, and the farmer was paid on the basis of quantity and the visual quality of his coffee beans. So, as we had set up a cup tasting unit, which was manned by trained cup tasters by the year 1978, to prepare uniform quality coffees for purposes of export, we had decided to introduce this incentive payment scheme. The idea being to, sensitize the coffee farmers on the quality, on the positives and negatives of the quality of his coffee, which in turn would help him to prepare good, if not excellent quality coffees. Well, we faced a lot of resistance because the coffee farmer did not understand what cupping was all about. He thought it was very subjective. Even today, I can hear some of the voices ringing in my ears. Mrs. Menon is in a good mood today. She's given me a plus. Mrs. Menon is in a bad mood today. She's given me a minus. But we decided that we'll go ahead with the scheme. And today, I think the farmers are very much aware that cupping is a very important and determining tool for the marketing of his coffee produce. Well, we didn't just rest with this. We went ahead in 1985 to introduce the preparation of washed Robusta. Again, we met a lot of resistance because the farmer said, I'm not going to get any additional payment for washed Robusta. In fact, I'll have to spend more money on the infrastructure required for preparation of washed Robusta. And I'm quite happy with what I'm receiving for my natural Robustas. But we persisted. We continued. We introduced this scheme, and today I can say with a lot of pride that we are one of the few countries preparing quality washed Robustas, and not just washed Robustas, but fine Robustas, which are winging their way to different parts of the world, serving excellent cups of coffee. Today, in the year 2023, the coffee bean and ourselves have really journeyed a very winding pathway. But what to me is so sort of a lot of pride I have today that we have moved up the coffee quality value chain. Today, our specialty Arabicas and fine Robustas are respected in the world market. They are being brewed in different parts of the world, and I think I have received so many accolades on the quality of our coffee. Now, how did this happen? In my experience, the journey has been, has the various elements which have played a major role. The varietals, the cultivation practices, the processing, the regions of growth, the marketing, all these have played a great role in the preparation of our specialty and fine coffees. Let me just look at the varietals. Dr. Christoph just explained to me, why do you call your coffee Robustas as seen to our, call it as Congusta? I got an idea. So maybe we need to implement that word. It's a beautiful word. Anyway, let me come back to the varietals. Our varietals are very different from the rest of the world. We don't have the geishas, we don't have the katuras, we don't have the pakamaras or pakas, but we have our own unique varietals as a result of the excellent breeding program, which even Dr. Christoph has acknowledged. And this has helped us in growing coffee in our country. It's a hot, humid country. We have lots of pests and diseases, but we're very strong. We know how to deal with them. Varietals is one of those elements which have helped them. Let me just quickly run over the taste profile of these varietals. I'll come into the selection 274. It's a time-tested varietal launched in 1945, crossed between the S288, which is from an offspring of S26, which is a cross of Coffea arabica, Coffea liberica, The S288 was crossed with the Kents, and the Kents was discovered by a Britisher in Chikmagalur, and that again substantiates what Dr. Christoph said. We don't have to all the time, develop varietals. You can search for varietals on your own farms, and this is what we're doing on many farms. We're looking at plants which are very different, trying to identify the DNA by sending it to WCR. They have a facility for us to analyze it. So here is the S795. What is the taste profile of this? It's got a rounded, smooth mouthfeel. It is balanced with a very well-structured acidity. It's got the usual flavors of caramel, chocolate, toasted nuts of walnuts and almonds. But what it has is the flecks of citrus and the lining of brightness or acidity, which can be highlighted through processing. And most importantly, the aftertaste is one of brightness and sweetness. Let me come to selection 9, a really distinctive varietal, drought hardy, may not be a great yielder, cross between the HDT and Tafari Kela. And what's so interesting about this coffee is the bright acidity, the sweetness of the cup, the distinctive fruit notes. It's actually got a progressive array of fruit flavors. You have orange, you have lemon, you have mandarin, you have red apple, you have berries, you name it, and you have it in the cup. And if you look at the finish, it's a lingering finish of brightness and sweetness. I come to Chandragiri. This has taken us by storm today. It is also known as Selection 13. I hate these numbers. I'd rather have them, with a name behind it. And I love the way we now have Chandragiri, named after the Western Ghats, which is well known for its biodiversity. Chandragiri is a cross between Vilasachi and HDT. And what's so special about this particular varietal is the boldness of the beans, the good yield, and in the cup, very juicy. It's got a nice, crisp, vibrant acidity or brightness. It again has got very distinctive fruit flavors. Finish, I was wondering whether I'm drinking coffee or some other beverage because it has lots of brightness and sweetness. Selection 5B, which is growing the non-traditional coffee growing areas. Again, it has helped these areas. It grows very well in these areas. And what's so interesting is the brightness of the varietal and the lingering finish, which is lots of sweetness. Coming to selection 6, lots of striking acidity. In fact, it's growing extremely well in Coorg. Now you come into the Coffea canephora. This is really after my heart. I just love the Robustas, and this is something we need to look at it with a changed mind. We need to look at it with a great deal of respect. The Coffea canephora, we have some excellent varietals. We have Peradenia, we have the Selection 274, we have the C/R or the Congusta. So let me come into the Selection 274, which is an erecta form of Robusta. One of its parents is Peradenia, which came in from Sri Lanka. But what I want to talk about this 274 is the bean size may be small, but in the cup it's got a rich mouthfeel. It has got the flavors of toasted caramel, it's got chocolate, it's got toasted nuts, and it has got the little citrus in it. But what's so interesting is the low bitterness. And I can highlight the acidity again through my processing technique. I come into the varietal Congusta, which is the piece de resistance of all our Robustas. Bold beans, and what's so interesting about the cup, I always think I'm drinking an Arabica. It has got lots and lots of brightness. It's got a mouthfeel which is creamy and buttery. It's got flavors of soft cherry fruit. It's got dates, it's got figs, it's got citrus. And what more can I want in my Robusta cup? What more do I want is the low bitterness. So this is, again, a great varietal. Coming into cultivation practices, well, this has also played a major role in the preparation of our specialty and fine coffees. What's interesting in India is we grow both Arabica and Robusta on the same farm. We grow it at low altitude, medium to high altitude, very little in high altitudes. But that's the topography of our country. And what's striking and important is that we treat both our Arabicas and Robustas equally, whether it's cultivation, whether it's processing. And I think this is one of the reasons why the quality of our Robustas is excellent. Coming into the sustainability factor, I think shade, but today we had a very nice input about sustainability. It's not just shade. It's a type of shade trees, and I can very proudly say that it's not just one type of shade trees in my country. We had a huge work done on shade trees in India, and this was done by Sirad. And there's so much of native trees here in our country, and I think that has also been one of the factors. But what I want to talk about is the shade of fruit trees. I don't have scientific data to prove this, but what I can say is that the fruit trees, in my cup, I have the lining of the fruit, the shade tree under which it is grown. We've done this many years, blind tasting, and we've been able to establish that, yes, there is some sort of a synergy between the type of shade tree and the cup quality. Coming into this diversified pattern of cultivation, we've been growing pepper, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon, fruits, today avocados. But what's so interesting about is this, that it's helped us, it's sustained us. It has helped us to go into specialty Arabica and find Robustas because we've been able to reap those dividends of growing these diversified crops. So this has also played a very important role. Coming into processing, well, when I was growing up in coffee many years ago, it was just the traditional methods of preparation of washed and natural. Then came descascado in the late 1980s. This again helped us to save water. It also helped us to, to have a different taste profile. But what I want to emphasize over here is, even before the specialty movement gathered momentum in the world market, as early as 1972, we launched specialty coffees of Monsoon Malabars. In 1985, we launched Mysore Nuggets and Robusta Capi Royale. I just want to touch upon the taste profile of the Monsoon coffees. I don't think there's any other country preparing Monsoon coffees even today. We prepare this on the west coast of India between June and September when the monsoon rains lash the shores of our country. In fact, the preparation is on right now. And if you look at the beans, they're golden yellow, golden cream in color. Look at the size, bold in size. You look at the density, low in density. And what about the taste profile? It's got a strong mouthfeel, very low acidity, mellow flavors of spices and chocolate and caramel. And the finish is one of flecks of bitterness and sweetness. A great coffee for an espresso drink because it provides the thick crema to it, encapsulating the aromatic volatiles. Let me quickly look at the Mysore Nuggets Extra Bold and Robusta Capi Royale. What is so interesting is the focus on fermentation in both these preparations. They're absolutely excellent coffees, bold in size, having their own flavor notes. In the case of Robusta, low bitterness, highlighting the varietal flavors. Similarly, in the case of the washed Arabicas, you have a very mild mouthfeel and clear flavors and sweetness. Coming into today, it's an explosive scenario. You ask everyone, what are you doing? I'm doing innovative processing. I'm doing biofermentation, carbonic maceration. I'm doing anaerobic fermentation, double fermentation. The sky's the limit. In fact, every day I keep hearing different fermentations. But what I always tell the farmer is, first understand your varietals and then embark on your fermentation step. Coming to regions of growth, they too have played a major role in the preparation of our specialty and fine coffees. We have coffee growing in the 3 southern states of Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, in the non-traditional states of Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, and Northeast. I'll just quickly tell you about the Baba Budan. In fact, this region, the elevation is 1,000 to 1,500. But what's interesting is that it's got a story behind it, which is needed for our specialty coffees. The story of Baba Budan bringing in 7 seeds, planting it around his hut in Baba Budan, from where coffee cultivation spread to the rest of India. What's interesting about this coffee is the fact that it's got striking acidity, wholesome flavors. And it's got a nice mouthfeel. And again, if you look at the finish, it's got brightness and sweetness because the elevation is high for Indian conditions. Coming to the region of Chikmagalur, it's called the coffee country of India. It's a cradle for coffee. Here we have coffees, we have 795, we have the 9, we have the Selection 5, we have the Kaveri growing here. But what's interesting is that the cup is very well balanced and it's an excellent base for an espresso. It's got a GI tag as much as Baba Budan has, and I'm sure Dr. Mandapa will talk about the GI tags. Well, I want to say one very important aspect of this region. Not only do we have Kent discovered here, but we also, this is a region which has launched the first Q-certified Robusta coffee in the world market. A beautiful coffee. I mean, it's a CN2R. It really embodies or encompasses the word specialty in its entirety. It's a great, great coffee which has, CN2R, which has a great cultivation, great processing, and finally a relationship marketing. Coming into Coorg, again a GI tag, again 900 to 1,100. It's a region which produces the largest quantum of Robusta, and it's the home to the martial race of the Côte d'Ivoire. Extremely hospitable people, delicious cuisine. I enjoy their cuisine. You look at the CN2R over here, it's got lots of citrus notes, lots of brightness, and hardly any bitterness. I just want to touch upon delicaries because I want to tell you that, the topography, the altitude seems to have an effect on my quality, including the soil. The beans are bold, bluish in color, irrespective of the varietal. And the selection 7959 have got a lot of sweet acidity, lots of brightness, and lots of flavors that are present in the cup of fruits. Coming into Tamil Nadu, Chevarois, it doesn't have a GI tag, but I'm sure it'll soon get a GI tag because the beans here are green in color, irrespective of the varietals. And here again, it's a sweet acidity, the selection 795 and 9. And the brightness literally, jumps out of the cup along with the flavors and hardly has any bitterness. Nilgiris, it's known for its fragrant teas, but it has some excellent small quantity of coffee. This is one of the regions where the elevation goes up to about 2,000 meters. And I like to describe the cup quality as a coffee which has a full-bodied, fine acidity and flavor akin to wild berries. Coming to Wayanad, the GI tag, again, this is a coffee which is premium differentiated Robustas. Elevation is not high, 600 to 900. But what's interesting is this coffee has been extremely well received in the market. There are lots of fine Robustas from this region with, very, very low bitterness and the flavors of the varietal getting highlighted due to the soil conditions. Andhra Pradesh, Arku Valley, it has really reached the skies. Today we have a cafe in Paris serving some excellent tribal grown, organically grown coffees. And these coffees, what is so interesting is not only the flavors, the brightness, the sweetness, but the aftertaste. It's got a lot of brown sugar and honey-coated aftertaste. Coming to Odisha, it's an up-and-coming state. There's actually a stall over here. I'm sure you should go and try some Tiger Bright coffee there. Again, here, Selection 5B does very well. And they've done lots of innovative fermentation. But this coffee, again, has got very low bitterness. It's got plums and citrus in the cup. Last but not the least is the Northeast, up-and-coming state, goes up to an elevation of 1,500. Just the other day, I tasted their CN2R, and I thought I was drinking Arabica, till finally, I looked into the notes that I had written, and I realized it was a CN2R. Lots and lots of brightness, an up-and-coming state. So these are the logos that we have for each of our 13 regions. I have no time to talk about the other regions, but what I want to say is that all the regions are depicted by these various lovely, colorful pictures. It depicts the flora, the fauna, the animals of the region. So as you can see, we have been preparing specialty Arabicas and fine Robustas since the year 1972 with the unique flavors, not only enhancing the flavor profile of the cup of these coffees, but also encompassing, tracing, and promoting the various players and contributors to this preparation. The research wing of the coffee board, the hardworking coffee farmers, the varietals, the cultivation practices, the processing techniques, the regions of growth, and the usage of these coffees and the story behind it, thus encompassing and fulfilling the definition of specialty coffee by the SCA, which Yanis has very, very beautifully explained, that we not only look at the intrinsic attributes, but you also look at the extrinsic attributes of the location information, the producer information, the sustainable certifications, and the story behind it. As you can see, we have certainly traveled a long journey from being a shy, traditional coffee, which is used as a filler, to a coffee which is specialty and fine, and being brewed not only in thousands of cafes in our country, but also around the world. So do visit the expo, which is just outside the door, and enjoy the different coffees of different varietals, of different cultivation practices, of different processes, of different regions of growth, which are served by our Indian coffee industry. I'm sure you'll return many times over to drink our coffees which have been sustainably grown. They are well crafted, ethically sourced, and served with a special quality of complex and diverse flavors. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting, and we get to learn more about the long journey that has happened over the years to get India to this amazing place by many people. Thank you, Sunalini. I think that to Professor Emmanuel Oliveira from the Federal Institute of Espírito Santo in Brazil, to talk a bit about the advanced techniques of chemical research of specialty coffees. So as we've seen the coffees, we heard about roasting, and we heard about breeding. It's going to be interesting to understand the science behind the different techniques that we have. So I would like this presentation to start. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. It's a big pleasure to be here. I would like to thank for the invitation, the opportunity to show you what we have been doing Federal Institute of Espírito Santo in Brazil. It's low battery here. It's not low battery. It's not turned off.
We can change it from here and do that another.
I'm going to discuss about some advanced techniques applied in analysis of coffee, determine coffee quality. But before discuss about these techniques, it's important understand that coffee's quality depends entirely on the coffee's beans, the chemical composition, and the brewing process that it goes through. Here we have some classes of compounds. For example, caffeine, trigonelline, sugar, lipids, and it's known that these compounds impact the quality of coffee. No? The compounds found in roasted coffee are separated in non-volatile and volatile compounds. Non-volatile compounds like water, sugar, proteins, amino acids, lipids, minerals, organic acids, etc. And volatile compounds like acids, alcohols, esters, aldehydes, ketones, pyrroles, pyridines, pyrazines. These volatile compounds impact the taster experience and the aroma and flavor of coffee. I like this illustration because here we can see how chemical change influence at every stage of the coffee production process. Through advanced analytical techniques, we can study each of these reactions and the process occurring along the production chain. There are some techniques that we employed in coffee analysis. I'm going to discuss 3 spectroscopic methods. The first one, X-ray fluorescence. This technique is very important for elemental composition determinations, and because we can determine the composition and concentration of micro and micronutrients in the coffee, fruits, or in the soil of coffee. The mineral nutrients influence the final quality because we know that different elements influence in the productivity, in the harvest, in the quality of coffee. It's known that chemical composition of soil directly impacting these factors. Here we have a result that soils of coffee, canephora. Here we have in a red market, we have a Robusta soil of Robusta coffee, Amazonian Robustas. And here in a gray market, we have Conilon. Actually, every sample is Conilon, is exactly red market. Here we have a Conilon soil of Conilon in a higher elevation, and here Robusta coffee and Conilon coffee in low elevation. We see that Robusta coffee that is the highest iron levels in the soil, and this Conilon in a high elevation, lower iron levels. The other Conilons, we have different elements impacted in these soils. For example, C and D, it's lower calcium and potassium, and H, J, and S, high potassium and calcium levels. The second method, spectroscopic method is infrared spectroscopy. It's based on the fact the chemical bonds within compounds have specific vibration frequencies, and we can see different classes of compounds in the samples. Here we have a study, and we compared the same coffee harvested in 2 times of harvest season, September and November, and we observed different qualities in the coffee harvested in September and coffee harvested in November. For example, coffees harvested in September, there are more caffeine, more chlorogenic acids, and coffee harvested in November, more concentration aldehydes, organic carboxylic acids, and lipids. The coffees harvested in September had more bitterness, and coffee harvested in November, more sweetness. Here we compared different mass brewing, French press, and V60. We can see 2 groups in the upper French press with more caffeine and lipids. And here we have V60 coffees with more polysaccharides and proteins. We tasted 4 temperatures, water temperatures, 8, 8.5, 9, and 9.5. And here we have the worst grades with more caffeine, and here we have the best grades, the best scores with more lipids in these samples. And we can see that the brewing method and water temperature influence the quality of coffee. The next spectroscopic method is NMR, or nuclear magnetic resonance. We can see and determine non-volatile compounds of coffee. It's a very important technique because we can compare with the taster experience in the cup. Here we have a study that comparing two processes, a pulped coffee and a natural coffee. Here we have, in the red, natural coffee, and the gray, pulped coffee. And the class of compounds responsible for this separation is lipids. There are more lipids in a natural coffee. Here we can see the correlation between attributes, score attributes, and non-volatile compounds. We have the more important compounds that more influencing the final score is HMF, or hydroxymethylfurfural. It's the most important compounds, the bigger influence. In the last technique, it's a gas chromatograph coupled mass spectrometer. This method is used for determining volatile compounds in coffee. Here we tasted different blends with Arabica and Coney long coffees, and it was possible to determine the principal compounds responsible and differentiate these blends. For example, these compounds was in higher concentration in blends with more Coney long coffee, and this it was more present in higher concentration in blends with more Arabica. And here we tried predict the score of attributes, and we could good statistical models for predict the score of attributes. And here we can see the volatile compounds responsible for different attributes. For example, here, after test, pyridine is responsible for this attribute. So here it's our team. Our partners, and I would like to thank for the opportunity again, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Oliveira. That was very interesting, and it's very interesting to see how we can predict also attributes using chemical analysis. So if we can go back, hopefully the presentation of Dr. Mandapa will work and go through a final journey through the GI of Indian coffees.
Can you check, please? Okay, good afternoon again. I will take you through the journey of the GI coffees of India. Very briefly and quickly, I know we've exceeded time because of the technical glitch. There on the main again? Okay. So before we go any further, let me again stress on some of the unique features of our Indian coffee. Like you've already heard from my previous speaker, Mrs. Menon, that we grow almost all of our coffee, or I would say 100% of our coffee under shade. It's not almost all, it's literally 100% of our coffee. This results in certain unique characters when it comes to the cup quality. Our beans mature much slower. This results in a sweeter cup. You just heard Professor Oliveira just mention that the coffees that ripened in September were slightly more bitter or maybe bittersweet. I would never call it bitter when compared to the coffees that ripened in November. So this is exactly what happens with our Indian coffee, since it's protected by the two-tier shade system what we follow here. We have a unique system here where we have native trees as well as other timber yielding fruiting trees like you've seen in most of our plantations. A lot of you all have gone for our plantation visit as well, so you'll have come across that. This adds all that more character to the coffees of India. And as we progress further, can I just use this? Coming to some of the unique features, again, most of our coffees are grown either in the western or the eastern Ghats of India. This is one of the top hot biodiversity hotspots in the world. You have a very rich flora and fauna present here. The coffee agroforestry system, what we practice here in India, not only helps in, say, catering to the livelihoods of millions of growers out here in India, a lot of consumers outside. We also help in protecting the natural diversity out there, both the flora and fauna. Now I will move into the GI coffees. Before I went there, I just wanted to show you all what Indian coffee is all about, how unique our growing conditions are. And with this, we have, like Mrs. Menon said, 13 diverse growing regions, of which we have 7 GI coffees, what we have currently registered from India. I should mention at this juncture that we got 5 of our GI coffees registered in 2019. Kudos to the entire coffee board team and the quality team in specific to have bagged all 5 of them in one go, for which we've also won an award from the GI Registry India. So to start with what a GI means, as the definition goes, a geographical indication of goods are defined as the aspect of industrial property which refer to the geographical indication referring to a country or to a place situated therein and being the country or place of origin of that product. I'm just quoting the definition of the GI. The GI registry and the GI tags come under the Paris Convention. India is also registered on the WTO, and these GI tags are protected as per the Registration and Protection Acts 1999. To give you a few examples of our Indian GI tagged products, we have a whole array of them. Again, Karnataka leads majorly when it comes to the GI products from India. We have Darjeeling tea, which is very popular other than coffee, of course. We have the Tirupati Laddu, a very famous temple in the south of India, which is again GI tagged. We have the Nagpur oranges. And when we come to our other GI tags, I will speak about the other products which are tagged as well. World over, we have seen GI tags with other countries as well. We have Costa Rica, we have the Jamaican Blue Mountain, which is also GI tagged, to give you a few examples. Coming back to the diverse country we are in India, we have diverse growing regions, which Mrs. Menon also mentioned. We have 13 growing regions, of which, like I repeat again, we have 7 of our coffees which are GI tagged. Coming to the first of the GI tags, this is the Monsoon Malabar coffee, a very interesting coffee. This is a process-specific coffee, and the process is what carries that GI tag for the region in which it is carried out. This is carried out in the west coast of India, specifically on the Malabar coast, what we refer to commonly as the Malabar coast. where these beautiful Arabica and Robusta beans are exposed to the monsoon winds, usually during the monsoon months. Like Mrs. Menon mentioned, it's still happening as we speak. And these beautiful coffees sell for a premium. And the region in which you process the coffee makes it all the more unique because of the diverse microbiome out there, or the diversity in the microbial load what we have there. This results in the coffee having unique characters. To give you a little more on the monsoon Malabar, in the earlier days, most of our coffee was shipped by the sea route. When it went to a far-off destination like a Scandinavian country, it resulted in the beans being exposed to these monsoon winds and then getting a little bleached and a little bloated, very unlike the green coffee we call Speciality when you look at it in the green physical form. But this resulted in a fantastic cup, very mellow, very nice, nutty notes to it, and adds a lot of crema when extracted in an espresso. And this character carried, and it basically encouraged the Scandinavians to basically drink a lot more monsoon Malabar. So do our Indian audience now, who have developed their palate to basically understand monsoon Malabar better. Coming to the Coorg Arabica coffee, a very popular coffee growing region of India. When it comes to GI, it's not only the product, but it's also the region, the culture, everything which comes into the whole picture when we have to apply for a GI tag or a GI registration. It was during the time when Coorg was ruled by the Rajas that the first coffees were introduced by the traders who came in from the Mocha port or from Yemen, present day. And these are the coffees which were propagated by the European or the British planters who came here. And from here did the coffees in Coorg begin. We have a lot of historical reference to it in the gazetteers of Coorg and various books like the Gold Sport and Coffee, what we have reference to, where India Coorg coffee is highly regarded. Coming to the culture and how coffee is connected to Coorg, we have the Kodwas, who are a dominant race when it comes to Coorg. They are coffee growing community. They are nature worshippers, and this again adds to the agroforestry system what we protect when it comes to coffee. They have a concept called the Devarakadu. It is a protected area in any small hamlet or village in Coorg, where you have a protected area where none of the native trees are touched. There's no felling, there's no poaching or anything there. And this results in the diversity when it comes to the coffee from this region. And this diversity also adds to the final product in the cup of the Coorg coffees we have. To give you a little understanding on the geography of the Coorg region, elevations around 900 to 1000 MSL. We have a rainfall of averaging around 1000 to 1200 mm. The main varieties, Mrs. Menon has already touched upon it. We have a lot of intercrops, and our soils are very unique. Again, referring to Professor Oliveira's discussion on the soils. The soils again add a lot of character to the coffees coming out of these unique regions. And this is how the coffees stand out and are unique. And we were able to also establish that they are unique, and we've got a GI tag established with them. Coming to the uniqueness, we also have to prove the uniqueness of that region when we have to register for a GI tag. So apart from the culture, coffee, what I spoke, there are a lot of other characters when it comes to Coorg coffee. We have the Coorg honey, which has also got a GI tag. We also have the Coorg cardamom, the green cardamom, which has got a GI tag. All these characters basically add character to the whole region, and that's how we've got a GI tag again. Coming to the Wayanad Robusta coffee, this is the only Robusta or Canephora what we have as a GI tag currently in India. Wayanad is basically a majorly Robusta growing region in India. It was again introduced by a British East Indian planter, Mr. Murdoch Brown, who brought in the coffees here. It is said that Wayanad used to produce the maximum amount of coffee during the early days. And it is also sometimes referred to as this, from here is where the Robusta spread across the other regions of India. Coming to the geographical location again, it's at a slightly lower elevation when compared to Coorg or the other regions. It's around 600 to 900 MSL. Rainfall is around 1,000 to 1,200 mm. And the main Robusta varieties grown here are the Peridenia, the Selection 274, and the C/R, which is the soils here are slightly different when compared to Coorg. We have more of the red loamy and the red sandy soils out here, which again impart characters in the coffee that is coming out of this region. Coming to the uniqueness, Vineyard Robustas, like you already heard, are generally golden brown. Most of them are naturally processed. Of course, nowadays there's a lot of wash processed coffees coming out of there. They're very suitable for blending is what we hear generally, but things are changing now. We have a lot of standalone coffees coming here, which can be brewed as specialty fine Robustas. Majority of the growers in Vineyard are tiny, small growers. This region gives a lot of employment and helps in the livelihoods of the natives out there. Coming to the Chikmagalur Arabica coffee, this is again a very important region. It is also called as the coffee country or coffee land when it comes to the Indian context. We have Mr. Lewis Rice, a British historian who's really compiled it very well in the Mysore Gazette here, which gives us proof that coffee was first introduced in the Chikmagalur region. And it was one Mr. Kent, owner of a small plantation there, who identified one of these unique varieties out there, or a mutant, which resulted in the Kent's variety, which is very popular. We don't see much of it now, but it is still present in small volumes there, which makes it very popular. Coming to the geographical terrain out there, you have an elevation of between 700 to 1,000 MSL, a rainfall of about 1,000 to 4,000 mm. Mainly an Arabica growing region, although there is a little bit of Canephora. And the Chikmagalur Arabica is what has got the GI tag. The varieties are the most popular 795 and now the latest Chandragiri. We have a lot of intercropping, which also adds character to the region out there. Coming to the uniqueness, Chikmagalur district is known as the coffee country of India, like I mentioned earlier. They have very distinct coffees with very enticing profiles to them, and is popularly known as the land of coffee. Chikmagalur is proudly called the land of coffee. Coming to the Araku Valley, I'm sure most of you all are aware of this. This has gained real popularity when it comes to the region. It has touched the livelihoods of the native tribal farmers out there and given them a means of income. It was again introduced by the Rajas from the Jaipur district initially, and this is where the coffee cultivation took off from. There is a saying that earlier days they used to practice a form of cultivation called the Podu cultivation, or the slash and clear zoom cultivation, which was popularly followed by the tribals out there. But now that has stopped, and they've got a settled income in the coffees they grow, and basically helps them in their livelihood to better. Coming to the geographical map, we have the Araku region, which again, we have the 5B variety of Arabica, which is very popular there. The elevation is again around 900 to 1,000 meters mean sea level. We have a rainfall of 1,000 to 1,200 meters. And the main crops are pepper, mango, jackfruit, and vegetables which grow there. The coffees from this region are very distinct. Like Mrs. Menon said, the fruit trees might have an impact here. There are a lot of mango trees out there in the Araku region, and basically the Araku coffees end up with a slight hint of jaggery, and I would say a very ripe mango note in most cases. Maybe, again, there's no scientific evidence, but maybe with help from Professor Oliveira, we can get somewhere there. Coming to the Baba Budangiris, this is, as the legend says, the saint Baba Budan carried the first 7 beans into India, and he planted it in the Chandradronagiri hills in the Western Ghats in the region of Baba Budangiri. And this is where the coffees of India basically originated from. We have a lot of history to back not this claim, but various other claims that the coffees were produced here. And we have the geographical location, which basically has an elevation, grows at an elevation of 1,000 meters and above. These are slightly high-grown coffees in our Indian context. They're very bright, acidic, like what Mrs. Menon already told you all. And this has resulted in a very unique cup and unique coffee coming out of this region. Coming to the uniqueness, they're high-grown. They're popularly known as the Giri coffees. And these Baba Budan coffees are very sought after, both domestically and in the international market. In a nutshell, just to sum it all up, these are some of the unique characters of each of the regions. I have not touched upon the cup characters because it's already been covered by the previous presenter. This is just for you all to just have a look at and get a feel of all the regions. Compared to all the 13 regions we have, we still have these 7 regions standing out, and we are in the process of getting new GI tagged regions when it comes to our Indian coffee. Again, going back to a little bit of research we've just started, we've understood the aroma profiles from some of all these 7 different regions. Each of these aroma profiles are very unique. We are still mapping out to understand how each of these regions have some unique aroma profile, and very soon I think we'll have some results out which prove the distinctness of each of these coffees coming from these regions. The Coffee Board also extensively works on promoting these GI tags. We have something called as the authorized user registration, which is available to every grower out here in India to register his coffee which is grown in that particular GI region as a GI tag coffee, which will help him get better market returns and basically get better value when it comes to premiums. We facilitate all that from the Coffee Board. And apart from that, we recently launched a program called the Know Your Copy campaign, where we actually evaluated over thousands, to be precise, 1,776 samples from diverse regions. And this pool will help us in developing these GI tags better. And you will see on the 28th that from these coffees collected, we will have the best of each of the categories when it comes to Robusta and Arabica coffees awarded at this very event at the closing ceremony of the WCC. With this, I'll end my presentation, and I thank you all for bearing with me with all the technical glitches. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation, and I think that concludes the parts of the presentations. So we've understood like a lot about Indian coffees on the last presentation, but I'd like to take that from a different perspective. So Anuj, who is heading like coffee for Dreyfus, which is a major trader, having heard all this, I'd like to understand how this is perceived on the trade side. So what unique identity Indian coffees have created amongst the global coffee buyer? Like there is a price inelastic demand for Indian coffees. And what are the challenges we see with regards to the Indian coffee attributes?
Namaskara, all the esteemed guests from various parts of the world. My fellow panelists who are experts in their respective field, and my fellow Indian coffee colleagues. Thanks to the chair of the session, Mr. Yanis, for posting me the question and allowing me to share my thoughts with regards to how price and quality of the coffee goes together in coffee trade. As many of us know, and we also see in Mr. Mandapa's presentation, Indian coffees being shade-grown, being sun-dried, being hand-picked, and the tremendous efforts which have gone over the years from the producers, from the Coffee Board of India, it has created a unique identity across the world. India is one of the fewer countries which grows all 4 types of coffees, washed and unwashed, of both Arabica and Robusta, and even fewer nations which washes the Robusta coffee. Ms. Menon is here, who is a strong supporter of the washed Robustas across the world. It has created its own niche demand. Indian Robustas, with their exotic body, spicy hints of flavors, and mild harshness. Those provides the excellent base for the espresso blends across Europe and many other countries. Indian Arabicas with their moderate acidity and a balanced cup, they found their place in many of the Middle East African blends. We saw in one of the presentations which mentions quality is something which where the market is ready to pay a premium. With these characteristics for the Indian coffees, we have seen Indian coffee getting a bit of premium, more on the side of Robusta, I would say, with their counterparts across the world. And also it has created a bit of price inelastic demand. With this, there is much higher volatility in the Indian coffee prices, which we have seen in the recent years. Now, it's a proud moment that it has found its unique identity, but at the same time, with the high prices trading today and even higher volatility in the prices, the roasters or the various buyers have started looking for alternatives to what can suit their blends. Robustas, which comes out of Uganda and the various African origins. Gilbert is here. Maybe he'll share a bit on that. They have been increasing their share both in production as well as in terms of their quality. Indian Arabicas also have been facing a bit of competition with other Asian Arabica coffees as well as from the Latin and the Central American Arabicas. Also, on the other hand, the inflation has been there, and the cost of production for the farmers has been consistently going up, both in terms of the labor cost and in terms of the other input cost, which is a further challenge of providing that incentive to the farmer to keep up with the practice of, let's say, the multiple rounds of handpicking and stuff, which creates that unique identity in the Indian coffees. So now, with this ripple effect of price and quality, I would say that's a great threat which we see for the coffees in the coming years. And more in context that India is still an export surplus in coffee. 70% of the produce still goes for the export market. As a solution, I believe Mr. Mandana is there in the first row, I can see him. We have to go back to the roots. We have to keep up the pace with respect to sustainability. Indian coffees, when we see the farm practices, they already have been a lot of sustainable practices happening in terms of shade grown, in terms of sun drying, etc. A consistent awareness needs to be spread amongst the various value chain participants to keep up with the pace of sustainability concepts. And we also need to get those sustainable coffees recognized across the world. I attended a session of ICO and one of the gentlemen mentioned that price cannot be the only incentive for the farmers because price eventually have to fall in line with supply and demand. So there is a constant need that we need to grow our yields as we grow our quality as well. We often hear a complaint that we have a shade-grown coffee and that is why our yields cannot be very high. But over a few of my years, I have experienced or I have witnessed few of the plantations who are shade-grown and still have tremendous yield in their plantations. We need to learn from those plantations and take it to a wider group and take it to more people and spread that knowledge to a wider group in order to pace up with those characteristics. So as a conclusive remark, I'll say we need a collective focused approach that we grow more coffee, we grow more sustainable coffee, maintaining those quality standards that we can keep up those uniqueness or the distinct identity which we have for the Indian coffees. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuj. I will pick on something that you said about African coffees, and I will go to Gilbert, because I think we've heard a lot about breeding, about how we can bring in chemistry and chemical analysis to help in understanding what we have in our hands. And I think Gilbert, being the executive director of African Fine Coffees, we have seen like great examples in Africa over the years of how we brought in technologies or like science to help. And I would like to hear from you, what have you learned all these years, and where were the success stories?
Thank you, Yanis. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to ICO, the government of India, and the Coffee Board for allowing us to have this opportunity to share with you. To speak to what you've just said, I think that the history of coffee in Africa in different ways, if we were to look at it, and where the success stories are, there are many. But maybe I'll highlight looking at your initial definition of specialty coffee as, for a long time, I think all of us identified specialty coffee with the quality in a cup and did not necessarily look at it from a holistic approach. And so I'd like to probably highlight a success story. Rwanda, for example, is probably a country that I would highlight as a country that transformed its coffee sector using specialty coffee, and initially using it as a specialty coffee on a quality in a cup basis. But the story isn't full if you don't look at it from a holistic approach. So initially starts with, how do you get the coffee to become a great tasting coffee? And obviously you start from the farm, but maybe with the science and the technology specifically for Rwanda was the introduction of washing stations across the country. So in the early 2000s, you had washing stations being introduced as a central processing site, as a way to now start looking at it from a holistic approach. And from there, I would say you were getting people together to operate from one location that would hire more than 100 people. And from that, the holistic component becomes the bean, which is coffee, but then you have people. And Rwanda in 1994 experienced the genocide against the Tutsis. And here now you had reconciliation happening at the washing stations. That's the people aspect of it that looks at coffee. So coffee brought people together while they were getting quality. Once the quality and the people were able to get it to a cup, then you start having the market demanding better quality coffee, which introduced Rwanda to the world. If you look at up until the early 2000s, Rwanda, and probably even that region besides Kenya and Ethiopia, on the higher end specialty coffees, was not known as a country that produced coffee. Then the world started saying, but hold on, Cup of Excellence is introduced. People started seeing Rwanda as a producing country of coffee, or great quality coffee. People start visiting the country. You start creating employment. So I think it's important to highlight the success from that holistic approach, that the bean that was great in a cup started building relationships across the world, started creating employment, brought hope, reconciled people. So I think maybe just, without time, it's probably one of the quick examples that I can give of a success story of utilizing coffee and then introducing it to the world at the quality level that isn't just in a cup, but rather as a holistic approach.
Thank you, Gilbert. That's very, very interesting. So let me switch a bit the tone of the conversation, because we speak about roasting a bit, and I want to go to Mr. Parnes, who is the president of Specialty Coffee Association of India. And I want to take it from a different perspective. We talked about roasting, but India is in a unique position, because in-country consumption is also growing. Like I was visiting the other side of the pavilion. There are amazing coffee shops, coffee roasters. There are the championships. And I want to understand, Mrs. Menon mentioned that the specialty coffee is going to grow by 12.3% in the next 10 years. So how we see the internal consumption driving coffees in India, and especially from the perspective of specialty coffee, given the wider definition that we've seen.
Thank you, Eunice. Good evening to everyone. I see a lot of coffee growers from India here, and we're all very keen to see that we don't depend on export market like Mr. Agarwal said. We all try to build our own market in India and create a specialty market where you get a premium price. I just want to go back a little bit where, like Mrs. Menon said, 25 years back, all of us, or most of the coffee growers, did not know how our coffee tasted. We did not even try to taste our own coffees. Then the situation came when our customers abroad asked us, how does your coffee taste? What are the profiles? We were just, did not know what to say. That's when the transition started in Indian market. That's where the specialty coffee movement started in India. But more than specialty, just the awareness of a good coffee started then. So we did a lot of effort, a lot of advice we got from like Mrs. Menon, and also the way we traveled all over the world and got specialists from different parts of the world to advise us and also to check what they were looking at from our coffee. Each of our coffee, like you saw the number of regions, has very much uniqueness. So we used coffee board support, we traveled a lot, we brought in a lot of knowledge, and now it's a stage of transition. There is, there's a huge number of younger generation who have come back from a wonderful multinational job back into the coffee plantation because they see the potential of coffee in India and how the domestic market can be improved. Like your interesting question you asked was, what is the potential in a domestic market? I think, in fact, I always keep mentioning for last few years that in India, maybe we'll have to consume all our coffees plus import our coffees from outside in the next 10 years. This is what I would see as the future of Indian coffee market. I think we have all heard of the Brazil story, how when they were dumping the coffee into the sea, they realized that they have to develop their own domestic market. So dependence on international market price need not be the survival for Indian grower. Indian grower can do wonders. Like you just saw, this is just the beginning. Coffee Board and the central government and ICO has given us a huge opportunity to, present to the world market, because there are almost 80 countries represented here in this event where they can see what India can do. And also, next 2 days, we're expecting a lot of coffee growers to come in and visit this event. When they come and see this, the excitement will increase. And then every coffee producer will start producing wonderful coffee. They'll start realizing, because I just saw, heard all the specialists about genetics and G-tag and chemical part of the coffee. None of us understand that if you go deep into it. We only understand what coffee tastes good and how do you make that coffee taste good. So little basics of roasting profiles, brewing methods. I suppose if that education comes in, the Indian coffee market is going to go somewhere else. That's my opinion.
So with the technical problems, I know that we run a bit out of time. At this moment, I know that you will find all the panelists and the speakers to ask questions after we come down of the panel. I want to thank everyone for being here, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge, and for leading us into this conversation. So I would like to thank you all so much. Yes, please.
Sorry, I have a simple question to the panelists, the speakers especially. Can you advise the basic coffee grower how to brew the best coffee and how easy to show that the quality they have? Is there any advice, please?
I have a very simple question. I think if you go to the other hall, you will find amazing baristas that have been trained and live here in India that can help you brew your coffees and taste your coffees on a different level. I think there are a lot of great young people that they're really trying really hard to take coffee into a different level here in India, and I think you have to be working hand in hand.
On that line, if I have to, I just recalled an example. So a few days back, one of my colleagues from the quality team, he put a cup on the cupping table, and that was one of the best coffees I have cupped in the recent years. And then he mentioned that this is something which grew on his own estate, and then went for an anaerobic fermentation himself. So I completely agree with your point on that, that people are trying hard and the next generation is getting into it and they are trying hard to make their coffee excellent. And this colleague of mine, he sold the coffee at $8 to $9 per kilo price, not to an Indian exporter, but to an Indian startup who is serving the Indian consumers. So agree to your point, Punesh, as well, that there is a huge potential and scope in the domestic market development for specialty coffees.
Perfect. You want to add anything? Thank you all so much. We need.
Hello, I request the members of the audience to kindly wait for another 30 seconds while we thank our panelists and speakers. Let's do them this honor, please. I request Mr. Senthil, Dr. M. Senthil Kumar, Director of Research, CCRI, to kindly present tokens of our gratitude to the panelists and to the chair. To Mr. Yanis, a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Yanis, who very ably moderated this session. Mr. Yanis, CEO, Specialty Coffee Association. So the shawl is one way of honoring, our guests who come to India. It's the traditional Indian way of honoring our guests. To Dr. Christophe Montagnon, CEO RD2 Vision. Ms. Ivana Vella, Ms. Ivana Vela, trainer and consultant, Probat Training Center. Ms. Sunalini Menon, President, Coffee Lab Limited. Ms. Sunalini Menon, President, Coffee Lab Limited. Dr. Mandappa, to Dr. Mandappa, Divisional Head, Coffee Quality, Coffee Board of India. Professor Emanuela Oliveira from the Federal Institute of Espirito Santo. Mr. D.M. Purnesh, Mr. D.M. Purnesh, President, Specialty Coffee Association of India. Mr. Anuj Agarwal, Mr. Anuj Agarwal, Head of Coffee, India Louis Dreyfus Company. Mr. Gilbert Gatali, Executive Director, African Fine Coffees Associations. Thank you, sir, for doing the honors. Once again, thank you to each one of the speakers. Our audience are so much more the richer today with all the information and ideas that you have shared with us. Thank you so much. A small announcement, this evening at 6 o'clock, there is a cultural event being organized and performed by a school from Moodbidri. So children from the age of 10 onwards are performing. 230 students are part of this, and they will be showcasing the cultural landscape that India is. I urge all of you to kindly stay back and be part of this mesmerizing event. Thank you so much for being here.